Hey, you guys, it's Kim. Welcome back to The Control Variable. So I have such a good show for you guys today. But before we get started, I have to warn you that my guest is very different from other guests I've had on The Control Variable so far. She's what you might call a wild card, in the best way possible. So her name is Busy Phillips. You might have heard of her. She's a comedian and an actor, and kind of a social media sensation these days. And if you're weirded out, stay with me, okay? I promise this pays off. You may know Busy from her Peacock comedy Girls 5 Eva, or her late night talk show Busy Tonight, or her best-selling memoir This Will Only Hurt a Little, or shows like Cougar Town or Dawson's Creek. I'm old school, so I fell in love with her back in the late 90s on Judd Apatow's unforgettable comedy Freaks and Geeks. May it rest in peace. But most of you youngins probably know Busy as the queen of Instagram stories. You know who I'm talking about. A glamorous klutz who started posting videos about her life as a struggling actor and mom in Hollywood a few years back. The one who now has like 2.4 million followers. So Busy's beloved in Hollywood. She has a lot of really famous friends. So she'd like film herself coming home from the Golden Globes, drunk on tequila, and getting locked out of her house in the rain at 2 a.m. Or creeping around on her property late at night with her best friend Michelle Williams, spying on two raccoons having very loud sex on the patio. She basically turned her whole life into a sitcom. Kind of like I Love Lucy for the ADD generation. Anyway, Busy's my guest on today's show. It happened because, as some of you may remember, we did an episode of The Control Variable a little while ago that focused on women's abortion stories. My guest Jenny Baumgardner and I told our own abortion stories. We shared clips from Jenny's amazing documentary, I Had an Abortion. At the end of the show, I said I hoped some of the women listening would reach out with their own abortion stories and share them. Because I think the way we women here in America have been shamed into keeping our abortion stories secret is a big factor in what's going on here right now around women's reproductive rights. Anyway, a few weeks later, Busy Phillips got in touch. She offered to come on The Control Variable and share her own abortion story. And before we go any further, I have to tell you that Busy's probably the only person alive who could make me laugh while telling me about the abortion she had when she was 15. But that's actually kind of my favorite part of this show. Because we need to keep talking about abortion. Midterm elections are in 33 days, and I don't want us all to die of seriousness along the way. So Busy's going to make sure that doesn't happen. And she's also here because she's kind of a superhero in my book. Because when she's not posting pictures of her glamorous life on Instagram, she's a serious activist. She was arrested in D.C. back in June for protesting the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe. She flew to her home state of Arizona to testify on behalf of abortion rights in Congress back in 2019, which, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go watch on YouTube, because it is an incredible speech. Busy's even gotten death threats, thanks to her activism around abortion, talking about women's reproductive rights on late-night talk shows and in the news, and on her podcast, writing about them on Instagram, and in her memoir, and on Substack. My personal favorite was a post she wrote about civil disobedience for women's bodily autonomy, under the headline, Hot Butts. That's right, hot butts. Later, there was also hot butts, too. She kind of reminds me of Dolly Parton in a way. Like she knows the currency she has as a funny, sad, gorgeous blonde with big boobs and a lucky life. And she's happy to put all of that currency to work as she tries to make the world a better place. It's kind of like another example of this dance of joy and responsibility I'm always thinking about. Plus boobs. Anyway, here's my conversation with Busy. P.S. If you aren't okay with regular and very shameless cursing, you may want to sit this episode out. What was your immediate reaction back in June to the news of the Dobbs decision? Like, how did you hear? Where were you? Who were you with?
Well, I'm on a bunch of things now, like boards. I'm on the Creative Council for Reproductive Rights, and I work very closely with Planned Parenthood. I've done a ton of stuff with Alexis McGill Johnson and Karen Sprock there, who is an incredible, truly like visionary activist. Karen, who years ago started sounding the alarm and literally created a job for herself, talking to creatives in Hollywood and in entertainment and talking to them about how they can integrate, sex positive, abortion positive, accurate stories of reproductive health and justice. She's incredible. She's a real spark plug. You know, obviously, I was well aware of what the decision was going to be. I had been on lots of calls. I had heard the insider information. I mean, the Center for Reproductive Rights, you know, their lead counsel was the one arguing the case. So, and I'd been talking a lot about it for the last couple years publicly, saying like, hey guys, pay attention. This is about to happen. This is what's going to happen. And nothing could have prepared me for how devastated I was on June 24th, which I had been saying jokingly leading up to it, because we knew that it was going to be, they always hand down these decisions in the end of June, right before they take recess, right? So we knew it was going to be sometime in the beginning to the end of June. My birthday is June 25th. They go on break that following week. I was like, I swear to God, if they do this and ruin my fucking birthday.
They did.
And I think I willed it into existence because it really ruined my fucking birthday. But yeah, I was really unprepared for how actually devastated I was when I found out. My friend called me and just said, I'm so sorry. It's a friend from LA. And as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, oh, it happened. And I'd been getting like flurries of things on the ACLU. I do a lot of work with the ACLU too. And I'd been getting flurries of emails in the days leading up to it. But I think I was just really surprised at how like truly devastated I was when the decision was handed down, especially because the language was so close to the draft and it was so harsh. And I don't know why all of us keep trying to like rationalize, you know, but like when that draft leak happened, there was a lot of rationalization of like, this is obviously we know this is happening. Like we know where it is, but this is a draft. So perhaps like it will be tempered and, you know, it won't be as sort of horrific.
Radically distressing as it was.
Yeah. I mean, did you see Heidi Schreck's play, What the Constitution Means to Me?
I mean, I've heard parts of it. I actually would love to see it. It seems amazing.
Oh my God. I think that it's like required viewing. I think they should show it in schools. If they don't, it is required viewing. But, you know, she really walks through how the Constitution, by and large, has just left so many people out, and how women do not exist, never mind Indigenous people or Black and brown people in our country. It's just white men. And so to see that language too, especially in that decision about the Constitution doesn't reference abortion and doesn't reference our right to our own bodies really blew my mind. Like, this is what we're dealing with.
I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I was with my mother.
Yes.
And we were driving. And, you know, I knew too. Like, I had, you know, friends who said, listen, this is going to happen in May. Like, this is really going to happen. And I even had a friend when Hillary lost, like when Donald Trump was elected, who said, this is going to be really bad.
That's what I said. But I was told that I was being hysterical.
Right? I know.
I'll never forget the, like, people who told me to calm down when Donald Trump won. I couldn't stop crying. It was like such a deep grief, because what it signaled to me.
Yeah, you knew what you could feel what it meant,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And that the hatred of women is so great. Because we saw it in the next election cycle, right? Well, I would have voted for Elizabeth Warren. I just don't like Hillary Clinton. No, you didn't. You wouldn't vote for Elizabeth Warren. Nobody voted for the women. The women didn't make it, even into the finals. The media bums me out, and the way that they couch narratives bums me out. I think that the media's most salacious, like, ways of talking about these things in the last 20 years has contributed to bringing us to this point. I was fucking pissed when Jimmy Fallon had Trump on and tousled his hair. I was like actually very mad. And that was kind of before people were getting real pissed about that stuff.
I didn't really realize how dangerous he was I have to say I wasn't as quick on the ball as you were about that.
Well, I think that's right. That's the trick. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was by convincing you that he wasn't real. Just all of it. The way that issues affecting women are dealt with, the way that our bodies have been dealt with. And then now listening to, I have so many close friends in South Carolina, and I have a very close friend there who, because I did a TV show there years ago and made local friends, which you do if you're not an asshole and you go to a town to do a
Which
TV show.
show did you make there?
Oh, Vice Principals. And so it was 2 seasons and we did it like back to back. So I was there for a real chunk of time. And it coincided with my kids' school, break, summer vacation. So we were all there. And it was really we essentially lived in Charleston for months and months and months and had just a really fantastic time, made tons of friends. We go back there now every summer. I love it. But my very close friend who owns a yoga studio there, who is a Christian church-going woman, had very devastating fertility issues and had a baby with like a genetic thing that they did that wasn't caught, gave birth to the baby, and like the baby died within 24 hours. And it was like really devastating, obviously. But then after that had, a series of, had to have DNCs, had a miscarriage that required abortion aftercare, and now has 3 beautiful kids. Her OB took her hand after the first baby died and was like, "You will be a mother. I promise you. I will help you become a mother." And she's testified now before the state assembly and, the special assemblies in South Carolina, and they don't fucking care. That's the thing. They don't fucking care. And I'm like, I get so annoyed about having to even tell our stories at this point. There's no right or better version of why someone had to have an abortion than...
No, I agree with you. But do you know what, Busy? I think that the thing is that there's a real difference, and I know you know this, there's a real difference between knowing something intellectually and knowing it in your body. And I think a lot of men have no bodily sense of what the reality of women's reproductive rights is. So that's why I do actually think we have to tell our stories, because I don't think they can feel it because they don't know them. Because we haven't been telling them. We were shamed into being silent about them, right?
Well, for sure. And I also think, I posted on Labor Day on my Instagram. I mean, I posted about unions because I'm in unions. My grandfather was involved, like a big union guy. And then I posted about labor, as in giving birth, labor, and how the truth is, and not enough people talk about this, and that idiot, Amy Coney Barrett, people die, women die all the time still in this country. And the maternal mortality rates are rising. And of course, disproportionately affects those most vulnerable in our country. Poor people,
hugely disproportionately
yes.
affects Black and brown women.
Yes. Black and brown women in rural areas, Indigenous women, obviously Black, brown. And this idea that being pregnant and giving birth is no fucking big deal. NBD, you can do it and then just give that baby up for adoption. You'll be fine. I have a friend who couldn't have children after giving birth the first time because things went wrong, ended up bleeding, having to have a full hysterectomy, and these politicians have no fucking idea what goes into our reproductive systems. All they know is that they stick it in and some shit shoots out and then they get a baby. They don't know.
It's so weird. It's in this weird way, there's a huge part of women that men really don't know. That most men really don't know.
I'm just a firm believer in, as women, talking about our unique experiences. They are different than the experiences that men have. I love Oprah, have always loved Oprah. I grew up coming home, latchkey kid, watching Oprah, making nachos in my microwave. And I think Oprah did such an incredible service to women in the ending years of her show by talking about bodies in very matter-of-fact ways. Now, Dr. Oz has turned out to be a total lunatic. I'm going to say Oprah doesn't have the best luck with men experts on her show, minus Nate Berkus. They've all turned out to be real creeps. But there was something about that, like all of a sudden talking about poop, like women talking about their periods, endometriosis. I mean, when I was a teenager, endometriosis, that word has not been said as much in the last, I would say 5-10 years. All of a sudden people are like, oh, there are things that happen. Ectopic pregnancy. I didn't know what an ectopic pregnancy was when I was...
Right. Growing up? No idea.
No.
I don't think I knew till my 30s.
Polycystic ovary syndrome. All of these things that deeply affect our health and well-being as women, and abortions and abortion care, because it all is the same. It's a piece of the same thing. And birth control. Why have we been the ones that have had to hormonally change our bodies? And then you're fucking pissed at us because we are having some mood swings? Oh, I'm sorry. I've been pumping myself full of synthetic hormones since I was 15 so that you don't have a child you don't want. And you don't have to wear a condom because you hate the way it feels. Guess what, guy? I don't love it either. I had never publicly spoken about my abortion until my book. And part of the reason was that I felt like it was a more nuanced story than I would be able to tell, in 150 characters or whatever, or in a hashtag. And I think that a lot of people who've had abortions feel that way about their abortions. And sometimes people don't feel that way at all about their abortions. Sometimes it's just very easy and simple. For me, it was pretty complicated because I was really young. I was 15 and I got pregnant from my boyfriend.
How long had you been together for?
4 months, 5 months or something, 3 months, 5 months. I don't know, 3 or 4 months.
Did you think you were in love with him?
Oh, are you kidding? I was madly in love with this kid. I loved him so much. And I have that added mind fuck of having parents who were high school sweethearts. It does a number on you. I'm not going to lie. Because my parents are still together. It's been like almost 60 years or something. I sort of had this idea in my head that I was going to be with this boy forever. And he was the love of my life at 15. So yeah, he hated condoms. I was raised Catholic. We didn't talk about our bodies. I didn't even tell my mom when I got my period because I had an older sister. I just stole her pads because I was so embarrassed and so ashamed. I always felt like my body was just shameful and or a joke kind of.
And gross, right?
And gross, yeah. I had been raped. That's how I lost my virginity when I was 14, which is the age of my kid now. I mean, as far as my parents knew, this was the first time I had sex. And honestly, as far as I'm concerned, it basically was the first time I had sex because I really wanted to. I knew I was pregnant. I'm not even kidding you immediately.
You did? I have friends who've said that. They felt when they conceived.
I have all 3 times have felt it.
Wow.
I didn't track my period or didn't even know what that was. These kids are very savvy now these days too. They're they know their cycles and
they
blah,
have
blah, blah, blah.
They're tracking it on their phones, I'm sure.
I know, but that's dangerous too, guys. You got to be careful with that now if you're in one of those states. But I went to my theater class thing that I would do on Wednesday nights. I'd been going to it since I was a little kid, 7 years old.
And now let's be clear, you're in 9th grade, right? When you're 15, or is it 10th grade?
I was a sophomore in high school. So I was in 10th grade. Yeah. But so I went to my Wednesday night acting class that I was in, that I had been doing, since I was a kid. And my teacher who'd known me since I was a child was there. And my friend Mackenzie, and I was like, guys, I think I'm pregnant. I just knew. And Jan was like, I just saw her face and she just was so bummed. And she's like, damn it. Okay, well, we're not going to get any work done until we know. So she went to CVS or not. I mean, it wasn't CVS at the time. I don't even know. She went to the drugstore.
Thank God you had her.
Yes, thank God. So she went to the drugstore, got a test, brought it back. I took it. It was positive immediately. It was like comical out of a movie. I cried. It was very dramatic, of course, because it was dramatic. Mackenzie, my friend, was like very supportive. And she was like, we'll go to Planned Parenthood. I took so-and-so there last year. We decided we would go like Friday after school because also we had another friend who thought she was pregnant. Well, that's actually kind of wild. She ended up having the baby.
Wow. Oh my God, a parallel life.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Intense. She's a grandmother now.
So did you guys all go to Planned Parenthood together and then she decided?
So Mackenzie had a car. I was 15. I couldn't drive.
But you had the money.
I didn't have the money. No. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how any of it worked. She just was like, you have to go to Planned Parenthood. Now, in retrospect, I understand that in Arizona, even at the time, in the 95, I think, 95, that Planned Parenthood didn't provide abortion care. You had to go to a Planned Parenthood. They would refer you to another clinic, but you had to like do that step. So we went to Planned Parenthood after school on Friday. They gave me all the information. They did like the full screen for STDs as well. You know, my pregnancy test came back positive immediately. They gave me like the phone number to call for a clinic that I could go to. They told me how much it was going to be. I had to call and make an appointment, which I did. Mackenzie and I like worked out some whole thing that like we would ditch school and what, I don't even know. That it was going to be like in 2 weeks or in a week or something. It was as soon as they could get me in. And then we went to the grocery store that the guy that I was dating at the time worked at. And I told him I needed the money.
So you'd already told him that you were pregnant?
I had told him that I took the test at the thing, but he was like, kind of like, well, I don't know if that's real. You know what I mean? Like he was, yeah, of course.
Checked out, right.
So I told him that I needed the money. He said he could get it because it's going to be $350.
Was he kind about it? Like, was he concerned?
Yeah, he seemed I think. I don't know. I mean, he was definitely concerned about himself, which makes sense. And I get it. And he was just like, you know, yeah, okay, so he'll get the money. Okay, fine. A couple days later, maybe I went to Planned Parenthood on a Thursday and then on Friday, whatever. You guys, this is literally 30 years ago. I don't know why I'm such a stickler for details. But he came to school on, I think it was that. I'm right. Wednesday night was the acting class. Thursday, we went to Planned Parenthood. Friday, he came to school and was like, my mom wants to talk to you. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And he's like, my parents know. And I was like, how the fuck do your parents know? And he was like, because when I tried to withdraw the money, the bank called my dad. I was like, why? Like, what is happening? And he was like, it's okay. They're not going to, it's fine. But after school, like, come with me to my house and we'll talk to my mom. I was like, I do not want to do that. Do not make me do that. I can't fucking do that. I'm hiding this from my parents still, obviously, right? So all day I was just like dreading it. Like just what's going to happen? It was terrifying. So then we go after school to his house. His mother had us come into like their bedroom. All the like wooden shades were closed. So it was like really weird and like dark and just weird. You know, she was very emotional and she was pretty harsh. Like she was very harsh. She was not kind in that moment to me. She told me I was going to go to hell if I had an abortion. And they were also religious. I was definitely made to feel like this was a thing I had gotten myself into. And this was like on me.
Was the boy there with you?
Yeah, I think he kind of tried to protest a little bit. And then it was just like, there was no point. You know, she won't give consent for this. Like, it's not a thing they believe in. And I can have the baby and we could give it up for adoption and all this stuff. And I was just like, I'm not doing that. And then she said, do your parents know? She asked me if my parents, I was like, no, my parents don't know. And she's like, you have to tell your parents. And I was like, no, I don't want to tell my parents. And she was just really harsh. It was really harsh and really horrible and really unkind. And finally I said, fine, just can you give me the weekend? Give me till Monday. Just give me a few days to tell them. And my mom picked me up, and I remember getting in the car and just being like shell-shocked, And my mom knew there was something happening. My parents knew something was going on. They didn't know what it was, and they were freaked out. And they didn't particularly love this kid that I was dating. So that night, I went out with my friends, Mackenzie and our other friend who was pregnant. And Mackenzie dropped me off. We went to the movies, and I don't know. Mackenzie dropped me off later, cried. Mackenzie dropped me off later, and I went to bed. And then at 3 a.m, my mom was sitting on my bed, and she was like, Busy, you have to wake up. You have to wake up. And I was like, what is it? And she's like, you have to promise me you're not going to be mad. You just have to promise you're not going to be mad. And I was like, what? What? And my mom was like, she's like, promise me you're not going to be mad. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to be mad. She's like, your dad read your diary while you were out tonight. And my heart sank because I just, obviously knew that I was a child. I wrote all my Dear Diary, I'm pregnant. Truly, literally, I can pull it out. I have it here. I can pull it out and show you, written in different color markers. But then my mom said the worst thing ever, which is, you need to go tell your dad.
Oh God.
And I was like, but
wait, I thought she said your dad read the diary.
He did.
And then you're still supposed to tell him?
Well, she was like, we need to know if it's true. And I was like, yes, it's true. And then my mom was like, you have to go tell your dad. And I was like, dude, can't you? What the fuck is up with these people? Just someone give me a break. It was rough. I understand, sort of.
It's almost like you better, because if you'd stolen something from a store or something, you better tell your father.
Well, that's what it was. I mean, right? The whole thing is ingrained with just this deep shame that I had really done something fucking wrong, and not that anyone else had failed me, It's all on my little 15-year-old shoulders. Been 15 for 4 months. Anyway, I did. I went in with my mom to their bedroom, and my dad was crying. And then I got in between my parents, in bed, and we cried. And my mom was like, well, I'll call our doctor in the morning or on Monday. I guess, yeah, because it was the weekend. I'll call our doctor on Monday, and I'll find out who we are going to go to, and we'll get it taken care of.
It sounds like they were, you did feel loved.
100%. I felt loved, and then, but it's complicated,
and
right?
Shamed, right? Loved and shamed.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I felt like my dad had a really hard time after that, knowing how to just even exist.
Be around you. Yeah.
Around me. And I didn't know how to exist around him. And for many years, it really, for most of my then teen and young adult life, it really affected the way that I saw him and the way that I related to him. And only in the last bit of time have I had this. I did a bunch of therapy stuff and got through so much, and we're very close now. And I'm glad that happened before he's not with us anymore, but it was really hard. Yeah. But my mom was unwaveringly supportive and this is what we're doing. My mom is great in a crisis. Barb has things. We all have things, she's got her things. But if you're in crisis, you want Barbara Phillips to come and kick some fucking ass for you because she gets it done. Never mind the fact that she called that mom.
Oh, wow, she did. And chewed her out?
On Monday. I heard, my mom closed the door to her office.
But you're pressed against the door.
I did not have to be. My mother was yelling at her. My mom was Don't you fucking ever talk to this is a scared 15-year-old child that your son, like my mom, because that was like the thing when I was in that room with her, the mom was making it like I had done all of these things. Oh yeah, I took the condom off, babe. Anyway, yes, my mother really went to bat for me in so many ways. And so we went to a doctor in Arizona, a man who was like, did private abortions. I remember being like just mortified by all of it. I did have to have an ultrasound, and I don't know if that was like a part of a law thing or if they just did it. I don't know, actually. But I remember the ultrasound because it was a wand ultrasound. So like, you're getting like a wand up your cooch in front of your mother.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It was pretty not great. I had the procedure. My mom left town because it was my sister's play premiere at college. So
you were alone?
Well, she left me with my dad. It was a bummer. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, my mom is like amazing. And then it was like, okay, that crisis is done. I have to go. Like, it was just like,
she handled it. Yeah.
And also my mom and dad had another not great idea, which was to not tell my older sister at college ever. Like that was we were never going to tell her.
Wow.
That was their sort of like ingrained 1950s Catholic thing, which is like, oh yeah, this happened to girls we knew. They would go away for 2 weeks and come back and you never talk about it again. And you never speak of it again.
Did you talk to anybody else about it? Did you talk to Mackenzie about it? Or did you talk about it afterwards or no?
Some friends, sure. And then, yeah, a little bit, but not a ton. No, not really. And then, my other friend was like pregnant. And so to have to endure not just like physically seeing what I would have looked like and how it would have been, but also to hear what people said about her.
And she kept going to school pregnant?
Oh yeah, she came to school fully pregnant. We threw her a baby shower.
Like, have you ever wondered what your life would have been like if you'd had seen that pregnancy through to term?
I think every moment is a sliding door. I don't know. I mean, I don't love when people say things like, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I wouldn't be the da-da-da-da-da. Who fucking knows?
Yeah, it's true.
Maybe I'd be even more famous. Maybe I'd have an Oscar. Maybe, I don't know. I just feel like there's a million different ways that stories go. This is the way this story went. And I've never regretted it.
I have a couple more questions about abortion. I specifically want to ask you how you talk to your daughters about it.
I believe in like giving kids very straightforward information and not making things flowery in any way. The two kids are very different, like vastly different children. Birdie was, I think, 10, and it was in 2019. And it had started to become like the national conversation had begun about abortion. And I was asked to testify before Congress about my abortion. And number one, I wanted Birdie to come with. And number two, then I was like, well, we got to talk about abortion. But Birdie's very gifted and really advanced in many ways. Like Birdie had asked about sex because in first grade, they were learning about DNA. And Birdie was like, something doesn't make sense to me. And I was like, what doesn't make sense to you about DNA? And she's like, well, if I've got half your DNA and half dad's DNA, how did I get his DNA? And I was like, this is a great question. And really, I didn't know that we were going to have the sex conversation because of DNA, but here we are. But so we were going to DC, and I said to Birdie, do you know what's going on right now? Do you know what abortion is? And Birdie's like, yeah, abortion's like when somebody doesn't want to have a baby, so they like don't have the baby. And I was like, yeah, it's like before it really becomes a baby, generally it's a fetus, right? And it's not like a baby like we think of baby. She's like, yeah. It's like, and Birdie goes, yeah. It's like a clump of cells. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's about right. I'm like, some people believe different things, and that's okay. That's like has to do with their religion and has to do with a lot of other factors. And I'm okay with people who don't want to have abortions because they don't believe it's right for them. But we believe that like every person should be able to make the choices about their bodies. And Brittany's like, yeah, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's like, yeah. Okay. So then I said, well, that's what we're going to Washington, D.C. for me to talk to Congress about that. Do you know why they asked me to do that? And Bertie goes, yeah, because you have a late night talk show. And I was like, well, kind of. But I talked about this on my late night talk show because this is an important issue. Do you know why I talked about it? And I just like wanted to know what information Bertie had. And Bertie's like, because you're a woman. And I was like, well, that's also like a great point. Yes, I do care because I'm a woman. But also when I was 15, I got pregnant. I did not want to be pregnant, but I got pregnant and I had an abortion when I was 15. And Bertie was like, oh, whoa. And I was like, yeah, I know. How do you feel about that? Is that weird? Bertie's like, so wait, this is where I want to just like tell you how fast this kid's brain works. Bertie goes, so wait, I could have had a brother or sister. Wait, I probably wouldn't have even been born. And I was like, well, we don't, I don't know. I don't know if I ever would have met your dad or if we would have ever had you. That's true. Lots of things would be different if I had decided to carry the pregnancy on and have a baby, but I didn't. And so I'm going to go talk about that experience. And Bertie was like, oh, okay. Wow. And, it was like Bertie's little brain was kind of rocked, for a minute, but truly, I feel like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's been.
Well, it doesn't seem like you made it into the way you talked to her about it is perfect, right? It's just like you were matter of fact, you were like asking the questions, making sure that she understood it. But it doesn't, I think that the reason why people freak out is because maybe the parent would be bringing back their own emotional issues to the conversation.
Right. But that's the thing with talking to kids about sex too. And like Cricket and I have had a little bit of like sex conversation so I'm just like aware of what she's learning or what she thinks she knows. And it's the same thing that I did with Bertie. And I really learned that from, one of my friends who was like, the best thing you can do is just talk about it like you talk about what you're going to eat for dinner. And all of those things, like we've talked about all of those things with that same tenor. And in fact, like if you're listening and you have kids who are like, you're like, uh-oh. But here's the thing. I always say like, I have friends sometimes that are like, I mean, my kid is 12. And I was like, oh, it's too late. Yeah. Like you missed it. But you really got to start pretty young. But it's never too late. I'm joking. I'm like, they already know. If you think they don't know, they're really innocent. I'm like, yeah, okay. They know. If you're nervous about it or whatever, I really recommend doing another activity like while you're doing it. Like for instance, driving your car or cooking dinner or unloading the dishwasher. There's any number of folding laundry, anything you can be doing that will like take away the focus in some way, shape, or form for you so that you can like just be as casual as possible.
Can we switch gears radically for a second and just talk about Girls 5eva for a second? Because I just want to say that you told me when we were talking about it that it sounded like your dream show ever of your life. And it looks like that. And yes. I just want to ask if it's as much fun as you thought it was going to be, because it looks so much fun.
We have literally the best time ever. It's fantastic. And I love the show and I'm really proud of it. And I hope we get to do more. And I hope more people get to see it because I think it's been a little bit under the radar. It's hard. There's so much. I get it. I myself have a hard time catching up with all of the
It is hard to say, but I have to say, like, the show is fantastic. Like, it is hilarious. And what I think actually philosophically, it's brilliant.
Oh yeah, no, it says something. It has something to say. That's great.
The lines that stick in my head are like an anthem to things that aren't perfect, but are still really great. That yes. I feel like is kind of the core message. She's a contender, but we're contenders, but we're also really tender.
Well, the lyrics, the music is like fantastic. And Jeff Richmond writes the music, and Meredith Scardino, our showrunner, does most of the lyrics. And then we've got Sarah Bareilles, who writes music too. And it's been a truly joyful and incredible creative experience filled with so much love and affection in the darkest moment in the world, these last 2 years that we've been doing this show and filming it. So I think it provides so much joy, and it certainly has been one of my favorite jobs I've ever done. I mean, who doesn't want to live out their like dreams of being a pop star?
So that was Busy Phillips, you guys. Amazing, right? I mean, let's just pause for a moment before we go to reflect on her particular brand of activism on Instagram, which strikes me as ideally calculated for our 21st century attention spans. And is maybe best described as a kind of carrot and stick, one for you, one for me trade-off, where pictures of Busy in a string-cut bikini or a low-cut milkmaid dress give way to impassioned posts announcing, for example, congressional Republicans' recent introduction of a national abortion ban, or the fact that there are now 13 states in which abortion bans have been triggered. And look, it's not like other celebrities don't do this stuff. It's just that Busy does it better. She's funnier about it, more playful, smarter, more sincere. It's like she knows that we all go to Instagram for some version of emotional candy, whether it's a laugh or a cry or the jolt of watching some lunatic skier sail off the side of a mountain. And she's more than willing to offer up that candy in the form of her long blonde hair and her glamorous smile and her cleavage, plus her smart, clear-eyed, deeply serious pleas for people to care and donate and fight for women's health here in America before it's too late. Anyway, I think she's onto something. As for the upcoming midterms, if anyone listening to the show is against abortion and you're interested in considering another perspective, maybe just ask yourself, when you're alone sometime in a quiet place, why you'd want to force a woman to become a mother if it doesn't feel right to her, for any reason. And if your first answer is because life begins at conception and therefore abortion is murder, maybe just ask yourself, according to who? And if your answer is God, maybe ask yourself, in your heart of hearts, are you sure? Okay, that's it for today's show, you guys. Thanks so much for joining me on The Control Variable. See you next time. And if you, like Busy, are a mom who's fed up with politics here in America, go check out the awesome organization Vote Mama at votemamalobby.org. That's VOTEMAMALOBBY.org. Guys, if you like the show, please be sure to go rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps. And be honest, okay? Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like. What annoyed the hell out of you. What you want to hear more of. I'll listen. I promise. We're in this together, okay? Let's make something amazing. The Control Variable is brought to you by Atomic Whale Studios and executive produced by Jonathan Wilson. The podcast was created by Jonathan, Brian Blatstein, and me. Brian Blatstein is the supervising producer. Rob Okendo and I are producers of the podcast. The technical producer and supervising editor is Derek Michaud of Shelby Row Productions. Sound editing is by Alex Aerosmith, and technical support is provided by Eric Totora Patu. Website creative direction by Randy Brasoff. Original music was composed and performed by Dan White. The Control Variable is managed by Sean Madison. Fact-checking by Kelly Stakopoulos. Megan Petta is our researcher, guest coordinator, and the person who keeps the Control Variable train on the tracks every day. Finally, I'm your writer and host, Kim Cutter. A very special thanks to everyone who made our show possible.